Let's see. Hi, everyone. If you're logging in right now, we're just waiting for 2 more panelists. We'll get started in a minute.
We have a hand up.
Actually, let me run to the little girl's room quickly. Yeah? Okay, I'm gonna stop my video and come back. Okay, I'm here.
Cool.
Hey, Laura.
We're
still waiting for one, love.
Okay, cool. Pour a little tea for everyone.
But I think a lot of people, around 50 people signed up, so we're still waiting for a lot of attendees.
Yeah, so I think we can give it a couple of minutes if everybody's okay with that.
Right.
No problem.
It's the end of the week. It's a good way to end the week.
Yeah.
Right. And then welcome to meet everyone. This is my first time meeting so many of you guys. So hi.
Yes.
Kofi, I know Kofi.
Hi. I've met everybody soon.
That's good for you then. All right, where's one love? Where's one love?
Well, I've texted him, and I know he's planning on being here. He just responded a couple of minutes ago, but I'm sure he's on his way shortly.
Sure.
But like you were saying, there's 50 some odd people who've signed up, so we can still give it a couple of seconds for more attendees to filter in. And we are recording, as well as there is I don't really know how to access it, but there is a YouTube live feed via the Oris Presence, our YouTube page. So that's being broadcast. So everything we're saying here is now accessed on YouTube live as well. But then the recording itself we'll obviously share after the fact as well. So nothing back yet from one love. I can call him on WhatsApp.
Yeah. We're gonna call him real quick and then we can get started. Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Great.
He's signing in right now.
All right, great.
Zoom has become like our new public forum. It's pretty amazing.
It is kind of amazing.
Yeah. In 6 months, this has become a universally, you know,
Oh wait, has
recognized.
Zoom always existed? Because I only knew about Zoom like just a couple of months ago.
Likewise.
Right.
It's always, I mean, it's existed for the last couple of years, I think, but you know, it's
Has a whole new
exploded.
purpose now.
Yeah. I had not even used it. We'd always been on Google, but the problem with Google Chats is everybody has to have a Google account. So
Account.
your email has to be
Right.
via Google or something. So, you know, it's not as inclusive, whereas Zoom, you can do it with anyone.
I think I originally downloaded Zoom out of boredom at the beginning of the pandemic. Because like everybody was talking about Zoom. I was like, okay, I might as well get it. And I didn't really have initial use for it then.
Well, now you do.
I think I can, like, the connection seems to be better. I don't know versus Google. Anytime I
Yeah.
use Google, I always have problems with it, but for the most part, Zoom is pretty reliable.
Boom. There we go. We've got everyone.
Boom.
Talk about Zoom being reliable. Right on the mark.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I was a bit
Oh,
No,
late.
you're good.
Good, good. How's everyone?
We're
Is my
good.
video sideways?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a statement.
Statement, yeah. Please.
The world is
Can we
upside.
see whether he's wearing some footwear this time around?
I'm actually wearing a cactus, a glass
A what?
cactus, a glass cactus.
Wow.
Wow. Anyways, I think we have a full house now, and we are 10 minutes into our time, so we can just start quickly. And okay, so hi everyone. My name is Noah Barnes. I'm the creative director for the Bonnet Afrique, the editor-in-chief as well. And the Bonnet Afrique is a fashion magazine here in Africa, and also we have a studio, a design studio. We also have a platform for young and emerging designers for the industry here in Ghana. So what we do is we nurture young designers, and over the years it's been amazing. We've had designers like Cenobrite, we've had designers like Atota Test, the French, African, Larry J, and most of them are sustainable designers. So it's very good and very it's exciting and interesting to have everyone here on this panel to start this conversation. And over the years, I've seen Lisa and her crew do amazing things when it comes to the fashion in the ocean vision. And we decided to have this conversation to commemorate the fashion in the fashion in the ocean day, which was supposed to be June, which was last month, due to the Black Lives Matter and so many things that was happening at that time. We have to turn it back, like to bring it back to this month. And it's an interesting and an important conversation to have. So we decided to move it so that we can have this conversation. Anyway, one love, I love the flower or the bow in your head. It looks nice.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's quickly go to the questions. So let me just have everyone to introduce themselves, and after that we can just start the conversation. So starting from the Oral Foundation, that's Lisa and Ekuban.
Hi, yeah, I'm Liz Ricketts,
I'm Branson Skinner.
and we're the founders of the OR Foundation.
Great.
Hi.
Sammy?
Hi everyone. I'm Samuel. You can call me Sammy. I'm a fashion designer and creative director of a team. I'm also into sustainability, so I try to put like a lot of sustainable practices in all that I do in terms of my work and creativity. And it's good to be part of the panelists today.
Great, Lauren?
Hi, I'm Lauren Goodwin, the founder of Swap Accra.
This is Solomon.
Hello, I'm Solomon Lloyd, the Director of Waste Management Department of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly and a sanitary engineer by profession.
Hi.
I love.
Expert.
My name is Emmanuel Osubonsu, known as One Love the Kubolo, and I'm a musician, filmmaker, and noisemaker.
Wow. we all hope your noise is for a good cause. But okay, let me just start with Liz. And Liz, you have been looking at the ways of what fashion pollutes in our environment as part of the Dead White Man's Clothes project. Please give us an overview of what you have learned and tell us a bit about your contribution towards the pollution of the ocean, your pollution of Ghana's ocean.
Yeah, thanks, Emmanuel. So for those who maybe aren't familiar with the project, Dead White Man's Clothes really just explores the secondhand clothing economy. And we have focused on one specific context for the last 4+ years, which is a market in Accra called Contamanto. So I think most of the people tuning in right now are from Ghana. So obviously you know Contamanto well. But for those who maybe don't, Contamanto is the largest used clothing market in West Africa, if not in the world, with roughly 15 million garments flowing through that one market every single week. And Contamanto doesn't just, service the local consumer base in Accra, but it also is sort of like a pit stop for all of the markets in Ghana and also for the surrounding countries. So for us as an organization, we started this research really naturally just out of work we were doing with students in Labadi, which is part of Accra. And that was from 2011 to 2015. And we were basically researching with them where their clothing came from. So a lot of our students were buying secondhand from Contamanto. And this experience just made us really curious and helped us to see how complex the secondhand clothing trade is. And then, at the same time, we were going to the market and having these conversations with retailers in Contamanto, and they were telling us that the business was no longer really good for them because there was just a surplus of clothing and it was lower quality than it used to be. And for us, coming from the United States, we were very aware that that was a result of an issue we were creating with the fast fashion industry here.
Right.
And I think, again, for anyone who's tuning in from outside of Ghana, I think, the secondhand clothing economy is really talked about in very narrow terms in the US and Europe. So we talk about it either one as like charity. So this idea, that someone somewhere will want the thing that, we no longer need. Or we talk about it as landfill diversion. But again, when we say that, we're only talking about landfills in the United States. It's not automatic that we're diverting it from all landfills everywhere, right? So it's just a very narrow perspective. And that, again, was sort of what provoked us to study this because, the secondhand clothing industry has always been for profit. So again, a lot of people in the US have this mistaken belief that it's nonprofit and that it's given out for free. But it's always been a for-profit industry that was meant to be an outlet for the excess that was being created by the global north, right? So we go to the archives in Ghana and you can see that there's this direct relationship between exporters in the US and importers in Ghana, where it started to sort of explode in the 60s and 70s, just as American consumers were being sent credit cards and told, to buy more and more and more stuff. And I think that's really important because, again, no matter how you think of it as like social or environmentally positive, it's also the donation of our clothing here in the United States is also unloading a burden. It's, you have a closet that's full and you want to make room for more stuff, or maybe you feel guilty about the purchases that you've made. And when you donate, you're sort of unloading this burden onto someone else. And we just don't ever really talk about that side of it, right? And I think that's why there's so many mistaken beliefs about what actually happens with the clothing.
So, and what actually happens with the clothing when things are donated in the US or Europe is that the vast majority of the lower quality clothes, the stuff that isn't considered vintage or luxury, is exported to the global south.
That is a very lucrative business when you come in to Ghana, where people actually make so much money and they are paying taxes for these things. So it's like we are paying taxes for, let me say, rubbish in the industry. And looking at your foundation, everything you guys are doing, it's very incredible to see that people actually have turned into it to see that, okay, this is how long the effect of this can have on our industry or our environment as people or so. But going to Mr. Solomon, since you work with the government organization as well, we watched your interview where you made mention of the fact that it led to the fire at the cornfield landfill. And can you explain how clothing waste impacts your ability to manage aquatic waste, and why you think citizens should care about textile waste in our aquatic environment? Sorry, your mic is off, Mr. Solomon.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
Yes. So, like I did explain in my interaction with the media the other time, the issues are basically technical. One, you know, we as a city authority, we do our work by planning, and we plan with certain indicators that we have. For instance, we should be able to know the population within the city of Accra, both residents and transient. If I say transient, on a daily basis, there are people who do not reside in the city, but come to the city center on a daily basis to do business and go back. And that is not going to end. And such people make waste. We know them. So in that case, we plan by quantifying the quantity of waste that is expected to be generated within the city. And this we do by looking at what we call our per capita waste generation capacity. And for the city of Accra, we have it to be 0.72 kilograms per person per day. But it will interest you to know that after we've done all these calculations to be able to plan what type of equipment to use, how to manage it, how to transport them, the number of transportations to have based on the generation you are expecting, then there is this container full loads of rubbish, chaff, that is coming in the name of second-hand clothing. Because basically, if you go to town, if you ask them, if you open any 5 containers, 2 of them are basically packaged rubbish. Now, we do not have control over such influx of waste coming through our seaports. And so whatever plan that we do to be able to take care of the actual waste generation within the city of Accra, this is the outlier that is coming in that we have no control whatsoever. Because at the end of the day, the traders leave them on the streets and go back, because it is not worth it just packaging them to take a trotro and pay transport fare again back to wherever you are coming from. Because some of them, if you reduce the price to 50 pesos per what do you call, whatever item, nobody will buy them. So at the end of the day, they leave it on our streets, and we have to go and collect them. And now in the collection, because they are made of textiles, it tends to cause damage to our refuse compaction trucks. It destroys the pneumatic system, it destroys the hydraulic system, because the textile will get entangled in the sliders, and whatever system mechanism it has, it will spoil it. So we are compelled to use tipper trucks and high payloaders, high reloaders, to be able to evacuate such huge volumes of waste that are discarded on our streets, coming mainly from Katamanto and surroundings. Then, aside that, when this waste, we don't have any other option than using a landfill as a final disposal site. And currently, as we speak, we don't have any engineered sanitary landfill. The only landfill that we have, as a result of the closing activities, it has caused the landfill to blow into explosion by way of fire outbreak. And these are the dynamics, as I did explain. The textile, especially those that are made of cotton, they have the high tendency of absorbing leachate on the landfill. In addition to high content of moisture already embedded in our waste, as at the same time, we have high content of silt You know, in our environment, you sweep, you gather silt with it. And this is what goes. Hello?
Sorry, Mr. Solomon, hello? Okay, we can hear you now.
Yes. So this is, the textile waste goes to increase what we call the bulk density of our waste, of our municipal solid waste. So ideally, we, like I said, we know our bulk density of a normal municipal solid waste, around 320 kilograms per cubic meter. But then because of the clothing waste,
the plastic waste in Ghana,
hello?
Looking at the plastic waste in Ghana, what advancements are being used in the recycling of plastics? Because we see lots of plastic on the street, we see it everywhere, and it looks like people just don't listen. And it looks like more companies are beginning to produce more plastics into the system. And what are the systems that, because if we can't forgo the use of plastic in the society or in our environment, what are the recycling measures that are being taken to make sure that we have like a very clean environment and free of plastic?
With the issue of plastic, the bottom line is simple. No investor worth his salt will go into investing in plastic recycling and will break even, let alone make profit. It always must come as, there must always be government injection to cushion the investment. Otherwise, there is no business venture that any investor can engage in when it comes to recycling of plastic, because it is more beneficial to produce the plastics from the virgin product than the recycled products. So secondly, it can also not be left for any type of plastic at all, especially with the single-use plastics. For them, their value in terms of recycling for any other product is very, very minimal. Very, very, very minimal. So as government, we need to take in the necessary measures to ban first the single-use plastics and then look for the setting up of industries that will be off-takers to process these plastics. Not the ones we have now that they will collect them and shred them into pellets and then ship them elsewhere for those who have the technology to process them. We need to get processing machines for plastics within in-country.
But Mr. Solomon, looking at the system in Ghana, if there was no way we are going to make profit out of plastic recycling or waste recycling, why can't we go into the more of like pushing the education of sustainable living? Looking at that brings me to my next question with One Love, where he has used this platform to preach about the usage of plastic and how it's affecting the environment. Don't you think we need to also like fund people like One Love to be able to create that awareness or education out there for people to also incorporate or have a sustainable living? That, oh, there is a need to also like use a bag or a tote bag instead of using a poly bag. There's a need to use this instead of that to be able to also reduce the number of the plastic waste in the society. But with let me jump to One Love with this question. Recently, he put out the video called Swim, and it was everywhere. I think it was everywhere with the reason that his butt was showing everywhere. Everyone was looking at it. Everyone was inspired. Everyone was laughing about it. But there was a message in the music, which I think people didn't focus on. There was a message in the music that we just have to watch the music video right now to see it, and then we can take it from there.
It is past drastic. There's no how to see for you. Too much waste fabric. It's super tragic. Cause I define how the ocean be free. Swimming in plastic. It is past drastic. There's no how to see. Too much waste fabric. It's super tragic. 'cause I think how the ocean be free. Turtles are drowning in water. Dolphins are drowning in the sea. Fishes are drowning in the ocean. Crazy if you ask me. Help us to save us from ourselves. To save us from ourselves. Help us to save us from ourselves. Help us to save us from ourselves. Plastic, it is plastic. This might be how can we see for.
Great. So that was a video we're referring to of One Love pushing the agenda for the too much plastic in our environment and what we need to do. But One Love, what was the inspiration behind this music, and what pushed you to do create such a content?
Okay, first of all, I heard a sound of like a dog or something at the end. I don't think it was part of the video.
No.
I mean, I'd like to thank you guys, first of all, for what we are doing, because it's not easy. And big up Liz and Branson, really, for inviting me out there to take part, because I was quite aware of plastic pollution. I wasn't too aware, even in my lifestyle, about fabric pollution, because I am someone who gets a lot of t-shirts as gifts from people, and I used to go through them, like I wouldn't care where one ends up and so on and so forth. So I've become more conscious of that. What was the inspiration? I mean, we were out there that day. That video was actually what inspired the song. There was no song. I went out to help out with the fabric collection from the ocean. And a friend of mine who had also seen me post about it online came as well to help out, but he came with his drone. So when we were finished, or we are taking a break and we were swimming, he just started filming. And I was just thinking he should film me deep out there. I wasn't even aware of how much plastic was around me as I was swimming far in the ocean. And so after that, he sent me an edit of the video with some other song of mine behind it. And I said, no, I have to make a song specifically for video. And so I wrote the song by watching the video he had sent to me. And why I think it's important, I mean, it affects, I grew up where, when I was a kid, we had one plastic bag in the house and we used it for about 2 years. It was a blue plastic bag with a plastic handle that closes. And we take that to the market every day, back and forth. We washed it, hung it on the line, used it over and over again because it was also expensive. It was like 50 pesos or something at the time. Swimming in the ocean, there was not a piece of plastic in there. Of course, there wasn't also a piece of fabric. And so I grew up in a time where I didn't see any of that. And I feel so sad when I see children for the first time going to the beach and seeing them swimming in all this plastic, as if how I was swimming with the seashells and with the fish around and maybe seaweed, and they are swimming with the plastic. It's really heartbreaking. But let me talk about the different aspects of society, like how it affects. So the plastic, first of all, is polluting, and the fabric, of course, is choking the gutters, the sewage systems. It's also messing up the fishermen's work. They are catching less fish, more plastic. Their nets are breaking. they are staying longer out there, making less money. So it's taking a very heavy toll on the fishing, the local fishing industry. Then as to the landfill, I remember a landfill being right by the Pantine mental institution in, I think it's Oyarefa or Denta somewhere. And over there, the landfill was always on some kind of fire, and all this pollution was going across the Pantine compound. So a lot of the buildings that were built there for the nurses and doctors are no more inhabited. They had to build them different apartments somewhere else. And of course, the landfills are also taking up land space, which is increasing the price of real estate and rent, because there's less land and people to build on or whatever. So it's all these things that it is doing that. And for me right now in the morning when I walk outside my gate, there's always about 3 to 5 pieces of plastic that have just rolled down the street and are caught in some weeds in front of my gate. So it's like it's just coming from everywhere, and that's why I'm resisting it. Yeah.
Wow.
And I was just going to say, one of just thinking back to the beach cleanup, where you filmed this video. I mean, one of the things that is really important, particularly connecting fashion to oceans, is, we often think about, particularly in the US, we hear a whole lot about microplastics, and we hear a whole lot about dyeing within the production process. And these are kind of the invisible pollutants. But one of the things in Accra and throughout Ghana more widely, but so evident in Accra, is the very visible pollution of clothing waste, where obviously, as you said, clothing is clogging the gutters and washing up on beaches. And, during that beach cleanup, Liz and I've been talking about this, that it took 4 hours and about 40 people to remove 600 garments, which is the equivalent of 2 bales. Which is nothing. In the scheme of what comes through Contamanto Market, 15 million items a week,
right?
Nothing, like literally nothing. And in the scheme of what we know is being dumped and what we know is being, going to waste is infinitesimally small. And so just thinking of the massive hurdle to address this, but then the urgency to address it, because it's not as if those fabrics aren't leaching into the ocean, aren't causing microplastic pollution, because most of them are polyester, aren't causing toxic chemicals. I mean, when you pull them out, the sand with inside is black.
Right.
So what is that doing to the environment?
Yeah, beach
right.
Go ahead.
Hello, even not to the ocean alone, but even to the environment as probably our surrounding and everything else. When you go to Cantamanto itself, it's sometimes not even safe to even move around, because there are so many tons of clothes that has been rejected and they are just scattered everywhere. And it looks like, okay, everywhere is packed with clothes that maybe are not being worn or are not being used. There was one time we were filming a documentary where the man said, sometimes this bags comes to Cantamanto and it's only rubbish inside. But I think that the problem is from the top to the down, looking at the fact that those who packaged it because they needed somewhere to dump the clothes to, because they were not bought. And when it comes to fashion sustainability and all these fashion brands, which I wouldn't like to mention names, that is some of the harm they are causing to our environment here in Ghana in particular. Because when you go to Cantamanto, you can see a whole brand with a whole baggage of their clothing in it. And one of the few things I've also noticed is that it's having an impact on the fashion industry here in Ghana. But let me go to Sammy. Sammy, as a young designer, how does the secondhand clothing market impact your brand and then the industry as well?
Hi everyone. So for me as a designer, I think my interest in Cantamanto or secondhand clothing started very early, in my initial ages of going to fashion education. My school at the time was very close to Cantamanto, so I was literally going in almost every day. And at that time, I wasn't really. I knew about sustainability. I heard about it. I've heard about recycling. I've heard about repurposing, but it wasn't something that I was after. I just saw Cantamanto to be a haven of clothes. I mean, there are so many clothes that you could ever buy, but it wasn't after one time I had gone there, and then this time I had met another friend of mine, Linda Balcomman, who is also very interested in the idea of sustainability. She's taught me a lot, and then she's really pushed me in towards this direction. And I mean, in conversations with her and several visits after by myself going to Cantamanto, I realized how overwhelming the clothes were. Like one time I'd gone there and it had rained, and then I was just standing like someone under one of the shelters, and I was just looking at the amount of clothes and shoes that were just being washed down. It was just overwhelming. My jaw just dropped. And it was also because like most of the things that I saw were like there was no way anybody could use it. Like no way. There was no way like anybody could ever find like ways of restarting to make like the most even then like disdain use of it. So from then I started to find like ways that I could use my creativity as a fashion designer to help out. And I think from there, every collection that I've worked on personally has had a little bit of repurposed fabrics, repurposed material, all sorts from Cantamanto. And in the beginning, it almost felt to me that I jumped on the bandwagon of being sustainable, because right now I always feel like it's a trend. Everybody just wakes up and say, "Oh, I'm a sustainable brand," and we do sustainable practices. But the thing is, people are actually capitalizing on the idea of sustainability. So it's difficult to even tell who is coming to you and saying, "No, I'm trying to be sustainable," and they're really being sustainable. Yeah, you don't know, because like anybody just wakes up and they say, "Okay, I think the world is heading towards like a sustainable future right now, and I think I need to jump in to get money." And for me, I think the biggest impact it has had on me as a designer and as a person is the idea of being conscious. Because like not even in my wildest dreams did I think, being in my studio or being at school, sketching and designing and making clothes had, you know, the most funny and indirect way of affecting everything around us. And I'm the kind of person who likes to go to the beach, but it irks me out when I'm in the sun or in the water, and then I get touched with plastic or fabrics. Like it just irks me out. And every time that I had gone to the beach and I cursed out to whoever is putting those plastics or those fabrics in the ocean, I didn't think that it had any connection to do with me. But I think like with the idea or with the general intention of having conversations with people like you, with Liz, with Branson, and all of you, it really pushed me towards like the direction of trying to be sustainable. I mean, there's no one true way of being 100% sustainable. I don't think that is possible yet. But for me, the biggest impact that secondhand clothing has had on me is the approach that I had on it, the fact that I was intentional about finding out how I was also I also had a hand in it as a designer. Because the truth is, you kind of select yourself. I can sit here and bash fast fashion brands for making too much clothes, but then if you really, really go down the line, there's a way that I'm also impacting the whole issue one way or another. So for me, I think the whole idea of second clothing for me, there are so many talks about it having a negative impact on creatives in Ghana. That is true, because I mean, if you're creative and there's influx of cheap clothing coming in every day, your designs or whatever you're creating almost become obsolete, because nobody is really interested in buying what you've really invested your time, energy into making. They rather go into Cantamanto where you get like rubbish for very like cheap price, and you can just dump it and go the next day. And it, for me, I really, in the beginning, it was more like a blame game. I was like, oh, why do you have to buy so much? But the truth is, just a couple of years ago, I was also on the same consumer treadmill. I was also just like, running to all these places, buying stuff just because it's cheap and it's available. And I think as a designer, the biggest impact, as I said earlier, was the fact that it really opened my eye, like being the secondhand market, being there, and then being a part of like, the whole supply chain really, really, like the approach that I used intentionally really opened my mind into seeing things and having conversations with people. And the other impact that it has had on me as a designer is the fact that it has basically become like my source of a bigger percentage of my raw materials in all the things that I've created. I mean, from my first collection in college until now, everything that I've worked on, every collection that I've worked on, I've found ways of trying to put sustainable practices in there by way of refurbishing, repurposing, and recycling. And I think another impact that it has had on me is, as I said earlier, being conscious. And then that is just about me. Right now, it has become easier for me to have conversations with friends who are also designers, like on this line. It's so easy for me. Before, it wasn't something I was comfortable with, but now, like any designer that I have who like actually open his or her ears to hear me out, I'll just bring up the conversation. And I think if other designers start seeing being intentional about this whole secondhand and sustainable issue, and try not to victimize themselves, because I've been in the space where I was constantly putting myself as a victim, because I was saying, oh, there are so many clothes out there, and then, you know, it's affecting me as a designer. Nobody's buying my clothes. True, no lie. But then the thing is, you're going to complain forever. And then Mr. Solomon was saying it, that they really don't have, because I used to say this until Mr. Solomon said they really can't control what is coming in from overseas. And I mean, if the people who are in authority cannot control it, how much more me being like, you know, a designer sitting in my studio? But I realized the impact that I could do is trying to have conversations with people and just do what I think is good. And then the reflection of me, or the idea of me doing what is right, or doing what is right in that direction, it will affect other friends in my cycle, or other designers who are looking at me, or other designers who I'm having conversations with, to move into the same direction. And I think that's how it has impacted me.
Thanks, Sammy. That's so important. And I also think it's just really, you know, for us coming from the United States and then, you know, spending so much time in Consumanto, it's also so interesting to consider just how the low quality of fast fashion impacts everybody, right? It's like,
yeah.
I mean, I think Ghanaian consumers are much more discerning than American consumers when it comes to style and just quality of textiles in general.
Yeah.
So all of that impacts you too if it's becoming like material that you're using. So we lost our host somewhere.
Internet issues.
But I know I have the question for Lauren, so I'll ask it of you, Miss Lauren.
Sure. Yeah. Can you all hear me, by the way? You can hear me okay, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm just holding my phone, so.
You're perfect.
Great.
So swapping is a revolutionary business model because no money is exchanged, right? So what inspired you to start Swap Accra, and why is financial accessibility important to the sustainability movement?
Sure. Well, I started Swap Accra. I was living in Washington, D.C. for a few years. And a really good friend of mine that I met, Samaria, she started Swap DC. This has been, I think, in 2011. So when you see how they run Swap in DC, it's really a community effort. I mean, you have anywhere from 50 to over 100, 150 people that will come and participate throughout the day. And everyone understands what their role is, okay? You know, no one's taking any money, so we're all there helping to sort the clothes. We're all there, you know, speaking to everyone, helping to set up everything. And we understand that it's very much so about first establishing a sense of community. So when I saw that, I thought, okay, I think that this would be really great in a place like Accra, considering the secondhand clothing industry that is happening there. So when I came, I just wanted to start it and see what the response would be like. I don't know, I didn't know how people would, you know, latch onto the idea of exchanging secondhand clothing in this way. When you're going and purchasing it, you know, there's this, maybe it's not new, but to you, it's new. And there's this exchange of money. So then it kind of, it puts a certain value on things to people, or anyway in our minds, you know. But when you're just coming and bringing maybe your old clothing or your old household items, you know, and you're simply exchanging them with people, you know, something kind of changes in the minds of people as to the value of a thing whenever you're doing something like that. And so that's something that I've definitely had to deal with in, you know, kind of trying to build this community and speak to people here to get them to see the vision, and why I think that it is good for people. I think I could have started in a really small way, like maybe just getting my friends together, you know what I mean, and kind of swapping amongst us. But I thought, no, I want to really open this up to the public to see who would want to be involved in something like this. And I noticed that a lot of the people that have come to swap have participated in it from the beginning, are people who have either participated in a swap, you know, somewhere else, maybe from, you know, they're from a different country or something like that, and they've done it, or amongst their friends, something like that. So when I started, it was really just first to introduce this kind of, you know, this community way of exchanging goods. It was never the intention to stop there. Certainly, you know, we want to grow this, and we want to then be able to speak to people more about what is actually happening, why we have all of these secondhand goods coming in here, what that means for Ghana, what that means globally, how we are complicit in allowing this cycle to continue, because although it's not our fault, right? We didn't ask for the secondhand items to come here. Now that they're here, we definitely have to think about, you know, how to deal with it, because it's a problem. So if we are saying that, you know, the AMA can't even, you know, they can't decide what comes in or what doesn't come in, then it's up to us then to kind of try and do something. So when you speak about financial accessibility and sustainability, it's crucial. If you think about this work, it's not as if we're here, you know, to make money, right? Nevertheless, the work still has to be done, and people still have to live. And when I think about capital, as an entrepreneur, when I think about capital as someone who, you know, as a human being who needs it to survive, I think more about what do I need with the capital? Not so much that I need the money. What do I need to buy with the money? You know what I mean? And so I think about, okay, for one, I need food, I need water, I need shelter, I need clothing. You know, if I need to travel, you know, these kinds of things. And so when I think about this kind of work, when I think about activism, when I think about community organizing, when I think about protesting, I think that at the end of the day, we just need to try and fund, you know, the people who are doing this work, and that we know that it's credible, they've been vetted. We know where the money is going. We know what it's being used for, but certainly, yeah, we need to fund these people. And that is where the conversation about redistribution of wealth is really important, and where we need to speak about that in the sustainability movement. You know, the folks who want to support, maybe the millionaires and billionaires who want to support, maybe they don't have the time, they don't know how to do these things, or you know, they just see that people are already doing it. Okay, so why not just support them? Yes, absolutely. You need to give your money to, you know, to organizers and to activists and to protesters who are willing to put themselves out there and say, okay, you know, right now I'm willing to make this financial sacrifice because I recognize how important this work is. But at the end of the day, you know, I also still have mouths to feed, you know, as all of us do. You know, so yeah, it's very important for us as organizers, I would say, to be able to find funding, but then not getting caught up. Like, I believe it was Sammy, you know, he made a very good point speaking about everybody just slapping this label of sustainability or eco on something. And then, you know, now we're supposed to support that. No, we can get into a very dangerous cycle by, you know, like industrializing things. You know, you see it with the NGO industrial complex, you see it with the military industrial complex, okay? Maybe some of these things started out to, you know, to help or to address a certain problem. I would say NGOs more so than the military, but, you know, nevertheless, as you start to get that money, as you start to mingle in some of these spaces, you know, you'll forget your mission, you'll forget what you're there, what you're supposed to be doing. And I think so long as we are on the ground and so long as we are all holding each other accountable, we do need to think about the fact that we need to keep ourselves funded, period. And we need to look at those who have the money to keep us funded, and we need to put pressure on them to make sure that we to make sure that we get that money so we can continue to do this work.
Right. Right.
Lauren, you
I feel like
just really gave me a very interesting perspective on how to view capital. Like I always that was a very interesting perspective on how to, view capital.
Right. It will keep you grounded. And I think I have to view it like that. Like I'm saying, not in order to not get caught up in that cycle of, okay, I see that if you go and just look at grants and funding right now, and you see where that money is going, it's absolutely going to quote unquote green movements, sustainable movements, agriculture, these kinds of things. So it'll be very easy to then see that and be like, yeah, get greedy. But that's not the point. We need the capital in order to figure out how we can use that to then divest from the system that we are currently a part of, that is currently oppressing us and causing all of these problems, right? We don't want the capital so that we can perpetuate the exact same thing that is happening right now. We need the capital so that way we can build a new system. That's really the purpose of what we're trying to do with any money that comes to us is really to make a way to divest from this way of doing things.
Right. Right. So
also
Kofi, Kofi, sorry, I lost some part of your submission, but this brings me back to the inbreed of like new designers into the system, and it looks like every year we grow over thousands of students into the fashion industry here in Ghana, and they keep producing the same thing. Don't you think this is also influencing the concept of fast fashion here in Ghana, where designers are producing masses, and every year we get designers not even using some of the things they produce, or not even selling out some of the things they produce? Don't you think this idea is also perpetuating the fact that people are just producing much more into that industry here in Ghana?
I will agree with that on two ways. It's true. There are designers coming in every year. There are new designers coming, graduating from fashion institutions and design institutions every year, and definitely are going to create new clothes. But I think right from leaving college or wherever you had your education from as a designer, the best thing about it is if you're really out of college, I mean, speaking for myself, you do things in small batches. Like nobody is coming out of college and going to create 1,000 pieces of clothes for no reason. And I mean, if we shift a little bit away from this conversation, at the end of the day, I'm still a creative. And then what a creative does is a creative create. So it becomes very dicey when you talk about the fact that there are 1,000 designers or 1,000 creatives coming every year, and then they are making a lot of clothes. For that matter, they are also being a part of the problem. True, but the thing is, as I said, I'm a creative and I'm supposed to create. If I don't create, then I become useless. But as I said earlier on, I think that's the part that you missed. One thing that I have found very interesting, and then I'm really doing intentionally lately, is trying to have the conversation of sustainability in terms of fashion design with every creative that I meet. So if you should, I mean, people on your platform, I've met a couple of them. You mentioned Sana Bright earlier. I have conversation with Sana Bright about ways of introducing sustainable practices into their brand. And I think for me, that is the most interesting thing, because if you're going to, it takes a lot, because Lauren was saying something about how everything, becoming industrialized. And the thing is, if it becomes industrialized, nobody really cares the original idea that, started off with. Nobody really cares about that. It moves on to being industrial and being capital based. And then all that matters at that point is money, 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 money. But then right from the beginning, even if it becomes big, and then you being someone who is really in debt with it, and have a conversation with a person, for example, you being if you have a close one-on-one conversation with a friend of yours about sustainability, I think the person will take it better than you sitting on Instagram or on TV or writing an article and posting it. The person might read it, but it might not have the same impact as you having a direct conversation. And then Lauren said something about her module being community based. And I think that is very interesting because, I mean, if you are in a community, you are in a community. And if you're in a community, it's more or less like a family. You really are conscious about the next person. You care about the next person. But then if Lauren is going to sit on her Instagram or her website and say, yo, I'm swapping this clothes this weekend, come and swap clothes. Chances are nobody will show up. Maybe her two close friends who are just trying to be nice will show up and then swap clothes, but not because they are really like interested in the idea. So for me, I think we can't really say, the 1,000 people who are, or the 100 people or whatever people, number of people who are creators or who want to be creators shouldn't create just because we think there's a problem. But I think what we should do is nurture or have the conversation intentionally with these people on how to branch into or how to get into the right way. Because the thing is, if you really get it from the beginning, it's rather easier to head out and when you get bigger, because it's rather harder when you get bigger and you try to downsize. All of these brands, I have a really, I know I believe it deep in myself that all of these brands that do all of these things that affect the environment and the world, I know very well that deep within them, when they go to sleep, they think about all the bad stuff they are doing, but then they've gotten to to the very, very extreme part of the whole thing that they can't. It's difficult for them to come back down. They just have to keep doing what they're doing over and over again.
Right.
Yeah.
But this brings me to my next question, because you made mention of the fact that brands are supposed to start dedication when they start their brand, so that once they get bigger, they're able to grow with it, instead of they getting bigger before they start to be sustainable. But as creatives, as branding creatives, what can we do to sanitize the population of the need to make the ocean safe for aquatic life for those who depend on it?
I just want to, I think there's a question here that kind of aligns with that from Beatrice, saying, how do we retrain the customer's way of thinking and the culture of buying? With sustainability comes a complete need to rethink how we consume as consumers buy and live. So I think that's very connected to your question, Emmanuel.
And I think also part of the cultural questions, you had asked before, how do we support, artists like One Love in your message? I mean, I think this is a big component where it all comes together. It's the larger way of thinking and what we're choosing to buy into.
So I think what I would say with just what Branson just said was, I mean, with the idea, I said this before, with the idea of one idea has become a trend. So it's almost difficult to go and say, and Lauren was saying, if you go to, all of these brands, you see people are really putting money into, being green and eco and sustainable stuff and all of those things. But the truth is, how do we know if the money is being channeled to the right people, as Lauren said? And I feel one thing, like when Lauren was talking, she was talking about like activism and protests and everything, and I realized that what she's doing is really connected to, if I'm not mistaken, is really connected to what she is interested in as a person, and I think, or as a creative, and I think that's what we should be doing as creatives, just like what One Love did. He was doing a video. He wasn't intentionally doing. He went to do his own thing as a volunteer at a project, and then ended up shooting a video as a creative. And then at the end, he found a way to merge his creativity and in his narrative with his agenda at hand. And I think that is one way that we could all do that as creatives. If you really want to put something out there, for me as a creative, if I want to put something out there on how not to affect the ocean as a fashion designer, I don't think I should come there, fellow Ghanaians, please don't put trash in the ocean. I think it should. I think it should be built on who I am as a creative, my narrative, my aesthetic, and that way it has more depth. Because if you as Newell,
Samuel, I think it goes beyond that, because when as a creative looking at you, mind you, pollution is not in a certain category of age, and there's a whole lot of people in this spectrum, and then we need to address, we need to create something. One Love created something that so many saw it, and I think only the discerning ones were able to understand the message of what he created. Now, as designers or as creators, I think there was a need for us to create something that people would also understand the meaning of this, because instead of, if creating a community is key. And what you're saying as a creative, doing things in your own way is also key. But what can we do to also maximize that sanitization in a way that if Mr. Solomon works with his agency, what can they do to put on TV? What can they do? And when we were growing up, there were so many adverts that when you throw something out there, it was an animation where when you throw something, someone, a man will come and cane you for throwing something like into the river or something. I feel like that's actually created an imagery in our brains that we're able to, some of us got scared even to the extent that we can't even throw anything elsewhere, but they stopped showing it. And I feel like those are the things that they also need to involve creators to develop such content to be able to deter people from doing certain things. And Mr. Solomon, there was a lot that comes to fashion and the environment. What is the next step, or what do you think we can do to also protect our environment as people in this country when it comes to fashion in the ocean?
Yeah, for me, the answer is simple. The issue is this. No matter what you do, there's always going to be some forms of residue that will be left in the environment by way of your processing or your creative activities. You will be doing your cuttings, your trimmings, whatever. At the end of the day, it becomes waste because you do it in your small corner, another person does it in his small corner. The aggregation of it is what I'm talking about. The bottom line is simple. We should be able to have the needed technology to be able to go over such hurdles. For instance, what baffles me is in the Western world or the Europe that these clothing are coming from, they have the incineration plants that can be able to take care of this type of waste. But why are they not doing that and then bringing the waste by way of second-hand clothing and shipping them onto us? It means they are also being overwhelmed by whatever they have. And for me as a country, what we need to do is to at least get such technologies in place, like maybe 1 or 2 waste incineration plants. You get all the residues, instead of sending it to choke the landfills, you take it to the incineration plant. It is incinerated. We make sure that the plant has a flue gas cleaning system that will not churn out other forms of greenhouse emissions into the environment, but it will refine it into water vapor and carbon dioxide, which is less harmful to the environment. Then we can be able to curtail it. But as it stands now, my problem is not even with the waste that is created from the creative arts, like small tailoring shop and whatever. It has to do with what the influx that is coming, and I'm saying we do not have control over. We do not have control over because government is not willing to go that lane to restrict importers of these items. That is the bottom line.
So what if the government is not willing to then go that route of putting those restrictions on foreign governments, right? To say, hey, we don't want to take your trash anymore, right? Then what can we as people do? Can we boycott or something? Can we just completely as citizens or as people living here, can we completely divest from any form of participating in secondhand clothing industry as people? That's my question. I don't believe that we can just say, oh, the government is not going to do anything about it, therefore now let's get more machines to still deal with this foreign problem. I think that that's just very unfair. At the end of the day, I think that's very unfair to then put that pressure on AMA, for one, just to put that pressure on the country. I think that still in some way, we have to look at these foreign nations and tell them, we don't want your trash anymore. At the end of the day, that is the most sustainable solution to this problem. Stop taking it.
Yeah, and having the conversation about eco reparations, I think is key here. We can't, again, it'd be nice to have an incineration plant, but if Ghana has to, you know, apply for foreign funding and go further in debt to manage foreign waste, then that is just, you know, perpetuating this problem. And unfortunately, I don't think equal reparations really are centralized at all in the conversation about sustainability. And I think until we're ready to have that conversation, yeah, it's just going to keep repeating itself.
And this is a civil rights issue. This is a, you know, this is a humanitarian issue. And that is how we really have to speak about this from here on out. We have to stop talking about this as a secondhand clothing industry. No, you know, you are putting young entrepreneurs here in a very bad position. The ecology of Ghana, farmers, all of us, you know, so we need to speak about this problem in that way. So everyone outside of Ghana, everyone inside of Ghana understands how crucial that this problem is, because it is. And I think right now, you know, terminology is kind of everything. If we, with the way we speak about it, we downplay the impact of what is happening through this system, then we inevitably are not going to garner the attention that this problem needs. And right now, I think we really need to focus on garnering more attention to this humanitarian and civil rights problem.
Absolutely. And it depends on who's talking about it, right? It's like, if it's the same sort of privileged people speaking about sustainability all the time, who view sustainability as a sort of moral or ethical, you know, purchasing decision, then we're not going to get anywhere. Like, we have to understand that this is, exactly as you said, it's a human rights issue.
Right. And I think when it comes to the question of sustainability, I think with my last live I did with we made mention of the fact that when it comes to Africa, sustainability is part of us, and it's been part of us since, because we do not produce so much into the industry. So mostly all designers produce in like fewer quantities, and then it's done and they're able to produce. But I think what we have to do is also to have like a sustainable lifestyle with our living, and how we are able to, like, we consume certain things, plastic, t-shirts, even what we wear. I think that there's a way we also need to normalize that it's okay to wear this clothes over and over again. When it's in a bad shape, you can fix it and then wear it. It's okay, because it's in Ghana, there's a perception, I think even it's in Africa, I don't know, but it's a perception that once you wear something twice or thrice, that means, excuse me to say, you are poor, you don't have much. That's why you keep wearing the same thing over and over again. But we need to let people know the harm this secondhand clothing market is having on our industry and in the ocean, and then why there is a need to be able to rewear what we have, to recreate it. Because what I do every year is that most of my interns that come in, I make them create a sustainable project or a sustainable collection, and after that they're able to shoot it, put them for their portfolio, and I ask them to keep it. The reason is me giving them the idea of trying to recycle what is in the environment. Because if Mr. Solomon is saying we do not have any chance towards we try to stop these things from coming in, then we as creatives should be able to create a system to be able to use that very well, so it doesn't end up destroying the environment as it used to be. So I know people are using denim for for doormats. I don't know if anyone has seen that. People are using the cutouts of denims for doormats. People are using it for different things. People are using shirts for different things. And I feel as creatives, that's another way we can also go. That is the upcycle, so that we don't have most of our waste into the ocean. And looking at the fact that Mr. Solomon, sorry, but looking at the fact that the government is not willing to, or the authorities are not willing to do anything. But are they willing to fund people like Lauren to do what she's doing? Are they willing to fund her to do what she's doing? Because if she's having a swap shop in the car, which I think is very good and a good initiative that we have, which Global Fashion Exchange do have the same thing, which I think I have to connect with Patrick, to be able to have that here in Ghana. There is a system now where you can actually take a code of something and then be able to swap your outfit with a different person. Can't the government fund initiatives so that it can actually reduce some of the waste in our environment?
Very well. I see what Lauren is doing to be very top-notch, in the
Right.
hierarchy of waste management, what we have at the first is what we call waste prevention. And waste prevention is to make sure that you close the loop. You close the loop by making sure that whatever system that you have does not end up becoming waste. And that is very much in line with things that she's doing. But it takes, I don't know, yes, maybe the NGOs and maybe we government sector, I mean, want to go and watch whatever she's doing and then see what we can do. That from an individual level, it can be taken up by an organization, an entity. We are talking about large scale quantities of waste as we speak. We are generating way over 3,000 metric tons of municipal solid waste every single day, out of which 14% of this huge amount is textile waste. And about 12% is about plastic waste. And for me, like I spoke about the other day, all these things ending up in the ocean, apart from the little problems we are seeing with the fishermen, like Kobolo said, they throwing their nets and catching rubbish. A time will come, the ocean undergoes what we call upwelling. The whole, from the bottom, it will turn. Once that turning, it is a cycle. It's a phenomenon that is natural. It's naturally occurring. Once that happens, we are doomed. Because all this mess that is ending up in the ocean will come up. And only God knows what will happen to aquatic life when that time comes. So this is what we must be guarding against. And we can do this by effectively putting in place efficient waste management systems, what we call on land. You see, so that we prevent waste from entering into the ocean. At the same time, look for devices and technologies to go in there in the ocean and get rid of whatever has sunk in the bottom. Because there is some studies that the research that has gone on at the bottom of the ocean, and it will marvel you the extent to which these heavy clothing like jeans, all sorts of fabrics are right sitting under the ocean bed. So it's laudable. So we need to promote that. It is top-notch in the waste management hierarchy. And so that comes to close the loop in order to prevent waste from being generated. But we are talking about a larger, that's the picture I'm painting for you. 3,000 metric tons of waste on a single day passing through the shores of Accra is no joke.
Right. So one thing I'm very curious about, and you know, I'm curious to hear, you know, One Love, your perspective, and you know, Sammy and Lauren and Emmanuel here as well, just for our own knowledge. You know, what does justice look like from the Ghanaian perspective, considering the Ghanaian government's role as well as foreigners' roles as well? You know, we've identified with secondhand clothing, obviously this problem is not originating within Ghana. But, you know, from my perspective, there is a concerted lack of investment in waste management infrastructure. I mean, I don't know if you can speak to that a little bit, Mr. Noy, but we certainly see that while there's investments in other areas, such as tourism, that might actually be creating more waste management problems. So that's within the Ghanaian context, you know, in how does that in terms of justice align with this vision? I'm just very curious what everyone's perspective here is on that. I don't know if One Love, if you have thoughts to that end.
May I ask a question also? And then I'd rather, you know, maybe One Love or Sammy.
All right, sorry, I think that will be the last question so that we can wrap up the session because we've...
Okay, cool. So should I ask it?
Yes, please.
Okay, so you're speaking about justice. So for me, I think about, okay, for one, we have you know, the global north sending that stuff here, or dumping it rather here. But then if we're thinking about also plastic production and the number of companies that are here in Ghana that are producing plastics that have absolutely no plan as to how they're going to make sure that those plastics are recycled, even what they are being made from, right? We have companies right here in Ghana that we can hold accountable for the amount of plastics they are producing. So my question is, why are they allowed to why are they allowed to produce so much plastic without having any plan for how these plastics are going to be recycled? That's Voltic, that's Canem, that's all of them. You know, if you are producing these bottles in order to put something in it, you know, or if you're just producing them for people to come and buy to use in their own industries. Why are so many plastics, why are they allowed to be produced with no plan as to how we are going to, you know, keep them out of our oceans and out of our.
Hello, can I come in?
Yes.
Yes, to answer your question, I might say the plastic industry have rather done very well, and I'm yet to see a similar thing from the fashion industry. What the plastic industry did, you know, they have an association called GRI. It's made up of these giant companies, Coca-Cola, Fan Milk, Unilever, these giant companies. So whatever they import by way of virgin raw material for the production of their bottles and stuff, they contribute some percentage as a fund for the management of these products that will end up in the environment, so the government can use that fund to get the products back to them. They may even buy it altogether so that they reduce the quantum of virgin products that they import. But unfortunately, this fund was created. It sinks into our consolidated fund, but there were no structures put in place by way of legislative instrument for the disbursement of such fund, such as we have in the GET fund. You know, there's some percentage on VAT and everything that goes into GET fund. And that is what is used for the construction of school buildings and stuff for the education sector. We have a similar thing. But the airlife to establish the disbursement, the fund manager was not created. And so government upon government comes, is a full day, the money sinks in there and it is being used. I'm yet to see a similar thing. Perhaps the creative arts or the fashion industry is taking a cue from what is happening in the plastic system, and for so doing, they are not encouraged to come up with such a thing, because this is purely a win-win situation. Once we create such a fund, we will also come in as technocrats to use the fund to implement actionable ventures that will help in the situation. But as we speak, we are heading towards danger, I must say.
But we also have to make sure, just like you say, that the fund is being managed properly, because the money can go in, right? The fund can be there, but if it's not actually being managed to do what it's supposed to do, then it will be futile at the end of the day.
Next time you have to get one of the politicians on the panel. So
I would love that. That would be a dream come true.
Yeah. Right.
Very interesting.
Thank you, Solomon.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this session. It's been an amazing one, an incredible one. And I hope we've all picked a lot from what everyone has said. And I think we should also be agents of change in our society and everything that we do as creators. I know we are all doing it in our little ways, but we should also try and then collaborate with each other. Let's try and do something so that it can be laudable enough to be part of this. Thank you to everyone that tuned in. Hope you heard whatever we said. If you have any questions, you can still send it to us privately on our social media handles. We're going to put on.
Okay, you froze.
Oh, wow.
Well, that was lots of fun.
Just as he's wrapping up.
That was
We
awesome.
recorded it, so we'll be posting it and we'll send it to all of us.
But thank you
That's
all.
great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you. Bye, everyone.
See everyone.
Bye.
Miss
Bye.
you. Bye.
See you.